Don't go away. And we've got the final SOIs for ChristchurchNZ and Transwaste Canterbury. Anything to report on that?
I'm going to say no. I'll table this report. I'll invite the representatives from Christchurch, New Zealand coming forward. The chair of the Board of Transwaste will be doing a update, is due to prepare an briefing for the 23rd of August.
Yes.
And basically that will include all of their environmental goals for the coming year.
So this is a briefing we've been waiting for some time.
Correct,
Excellent.
yes. And so therefore that's one of the features, was this environmental goals and how they're going to meet those. So that key issue is they do not lack good performance measures in that area, and it's an opportunity to push on those goals.
So all councillors are aware of that briefing? Yes. Okay. Vicky?
It was their environmental goals that I wanted to raise, because there really aren't any in here. Is that deliberate, that there's no environmental goals?
No, we're trying to make sure that they put them in, and therefore that's reinforcing the fact that these are to comply with its obligations under the LG Local Government Act, that they need to put the performance measures in there, and there are some, but they're nothing to do with the environmental side of it, and so we're trying to reinforce that position with them.
So the environmental goals that we have in the statement of intent, or that are in here, are weak and wussy, just to be blunt about them. So they have to comply with the RMA, which I don't think anybody would call a piece of environmental legislation. But just a couple of examples. There's nothing about their carbon emissions at all, and I would have expected any organisation that we own a share of. I mean, we've certainly done it with all of our council-owned companies, but we have omitted it here. There's also nothing about their, despite the fact that they had the lovely launch of their electric truck, there's been no mention of any further conversions of any of their vehicles to electricity. There's no target dates in here. There is nothing apart from compliance with the law.
And this is the key function that this briefing is going to have. We're going to reinforce the fact that these are what we want them to present. And so in between the draft, this final one, you know, there've been some machinations, but they need to present to us what these best going forward.
And we will have the chance to put that into this year's SOI?
Not at this point in time.
Well, is this the only time we have the chance to put some environmental goals into this year's? Because I don't think that we can wait.
You maybe have an ability to influence the Transwaste Joint Committee on actually having a set of goals which they can work to, and those performance measures that go with those goals. Because to put in place something today for the rest of the year, they may not be geared up to do that. So to buy a fleet of electric trucks...
No, they're not buying them. They've bought their unit in Auckland. They're taking the trucks and actually converting them. That's what they explained at the art gallery when they launched it. But so far, there's only one.
I think the briefing will be the other opportunity.
The SOI has already been notified. The point of the briefing is actually to feed the stuff back and see actually what can be done.
So can we just let them know that we want to be able to amend it after that?
Well, we can't do that.
No.
I mean, if anything changes in the SOI, it will be for next year. But as a shareholder, we can probably feed back in a slightly different way.
Well, we own 49% of this, don't we?
39.
Well, this is why the
Between the
briefing's
local
coming up
authorities.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Any other questions?
Did you want just on Transwaste?
Yeah, we'll just deal with that one first. Yeah. Okay, let's go on to ChristchurchNZ. Any questions there? Yanni? That is to Len or to the...
It's probably more to the ChristchurchNZ directly to the chair. I appreciate that you've tried to put in the inclusive and sustainable measures, and I think it won't be any surprise, but previously I've asked if there was any way in which we could look at private debt in our city comparatively. I just wondered if you'd done any further work on that, or whether there was any other measures around inclusive and sustainable that you'd considered that you haven't put in, or that you would be looking to put in the future.
There's two answers to that question. The measures within our statement of intent, excuse me, I've got a cold. That's the husky voice. The measures within our statement of intent are aligned back to the 10-year goals within the prosperity framework. The next piece of work we see in terms of developing the prosperity framework is the longer term vision around Christchurch 2050, and that's where we will seek direction from this council and partner councils across Greater Christchurch around the level of goals, and that will in turn feed back into our statement of intent. So the short answer is not for this statement of intent period, for the current financial year, but certainly in the long term we see that being driven by the Christchurch 2050 strategy.
Okay. Dion?
Yeah, thanks for the for this, and it's really good to see everything that's in there. The one question that I had, and I'm just trying to pull it up, because I think my annotations have been somehow miraculously deleted on here, unfortunately, is around jobs and job creation. Obviously, it touches on that, but I'm just wondering, are we being bold enough as a city, and can we be bolder?
Yes, we can always be bolder. We need to be realistic around what's achievable within this financial year and then what our ambition is in the long term. And it's the same answer, really, as I gave to Yanni's question. When we set that level of ambition through our long-term strategic planning, that will drive the capability that we have within any given financial year. Job creation comes off the back of a number of factors, but primary among those is simply creating the demand and ensuring that we are effectively partnering with central government and with the corporates nationally. When we have the conversations with corporate head offices about the opportunity of Christchurch, that is where we start to really shift the dial, if they're prepared to move large parts of their workforce to Christchurch because they see the value in that.
Mm. No, there was a little bit more here. I'm really annoyed that these annotations have been deleted. It's
Open it and shut it down and open it
no,
again.
I've done that. I've tried everything. I actually wrote. I'm going to start writing things on pieces of paper again. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But I think I do want us to really start focusing on that area. I'm a little bit concerned.
We're heavily focused in that area, so if you have your reassurance.
I'm so annoyed these are deleted. That's so sad. Thank you.
Good. Okay, any other questions? Yanni?
Thanks. Just following on from the issues that I'm dealing with in Linwood, I was just trying to understand in your SOI, there's a lot of focus on the central city, and I appreciate that there's challenges there, but what I don't get any sense of is what are you doing in the other areas of the city that are faced with issues around things like job retention, small and local businesses, etc. Is there any kind of work stream that you have or any sort of recognition of some of the areas post-earthquake which have seen quite significant changes to the underlying economic performance?
Yeah, so rather than look at geographical areas in isolation, we look at the economy as a whole and what's really going to shift the dynamic for the overall economy. And that's why the central city is so important to us, because ensuring that we've got a vibrant central city is fundamental to influencing prosperity across all of the city. And that in turn lifts prosperity in some of the areas that you refer to.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks very much for that. I've got a resolution to note the final SOIs, as we've discussed. I'm happy to move. Seconded Dion. Any debate? Yanni?
I just think it's really important. I mean, obviously there's been an acknowledgement that we're going to do some more work around that 2050 vision, and I think what's really important as part of that is to certainly look at how we measure the community well-being in local geographic areas. I know the central city's got a special focus, but I do feel that some areas, you know, New Brighton, Linwood, there'll be others as well, where we do need to think about the changes that are happening in those communities and how we're making sure that we can look at the economic support that, you know, that we are delivering as a council and as a city. So yeah, I think there's more work to be done. Obviously, we're not going to change it in this statement of intent, but I do think it's a thing that we should highlight. I also think what's really good in the statement of intent is there is actually a description of the commitment to kaitiaki-tangi and sustainability. And, you know, just to quote from that, whilst our purpose is to grow the economy, we're committed to doing so sustainably, ensuring environmental quality and economic inclusion are maintained and enhanced while doing so. And I just really wanted to highlight that because I think the big headline about growing the population and growing GDP shouldn't be at the expense of our environment or at economic inclusion. And it's nice to see that that's referred to in this document. But I think we maybe need to think for next year how we can be a bit more visible about that. But yeah, thanks.
Dion?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the job creation and retention and retaining talent in our city. I really like the comments in this where it says we have bold ambition for Christchurch. We are committed to realising our mission in a way which is grounded in our place, Otutahi, Christchurch, New Zealand, and our role as a leader in the city. And I think Christchurch has a role to be a leader in the country, especially around all of the other stuff that's just above that, around the screen office, the convention bureau, the destination and attractions, the city profile and all of those things, and especially with everything that we have gone through and that we are still to go through. And I do want us to be a lot more bolder and being a bit more, this city is can be the leader of New Zealand. Obviously Auckland is always going to be that powerhouse of economic growth potentially, but it doesn't have to be. We've got all of the ingredients to do stuff and make things happen, and we are coming into a point at the moment where we do have lower employment and the economy is changing, and I really want us to grab onto that over the next 12 months and drive that vision. I think we need to do it soon, and we need to do it bold, and we need to tell the Blimmin government that actually this city needs it beside us and actually really invest in what we're doing here. So a really good challenge, but I think there's a great future to be had.
Can I say that as chair of the Holdings Group, what excites me about this statement of intent is that when we deliver it, we will be delivering an ambitious future for Christchurch.
We're in debate, so
Oh.
I'll let that slide. Mike?
Thanks. I just want to quickly touch on Transwaste's SOI and I guess just my disappointment that they haven't included, I guess, the clearer goals to be how they're going to support us becoming carbon neutral and just defer it to the next SOI. There is a saying that a climate delayer is a climate denier. So I really hope that we do see some improvement from that board.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll say a few words. I mean, I think both Yanni and Dion have made some good points there in terms of, my ambition for ChristchurchNZ has always been our spearhead around economic development, a sustainable economic development. The challenge will be how cooperative central government is going to be around that conversation, because in terms of the funding, it's got to come out of GST. I mean, that is the big conversation to have with the Crown, that if local government is going to support its communities in economic development, it's going to need some funding to do it, and the funding comes from GST. So the extent to which Wellington is willing to let go of those purse strings or do the investment themselves. The thing is, I'm not seeing them doing the investment themselves. It should be done at the local level because that's where people have the knowledge. So hopefully that is a conversation that can continue over the next year, and hopefully by the time we come back for next year's SOI, you'll have a different conversation to report. Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Aye, against, that's carried.